This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 31st day of October 2010. And now for the real news. TV funnymen Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert appeared on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. yesterday to host the much-talked-about Rally to Restore Fear and/or Sanity. Calling for a moment of sincerity at the end of the event, Stewart delivered a stirring and well-received speech on the need for people of different ideologies to work together to achieve their shared goals.
Another car is a Latino carpenter. Another car, a fundamentalist vacuum salesman. Atheist obstetrician. Mormon Jay-Z fan. But this is us. Every one of the cars that you see is filled with individuals of strong belief and principles they hold dear. Often principles and beliefs in direct opposition to their fellow travelers. And yet these millions of cars must somehow find a way to squeeze one by one into a mile-long, 30-foot-wide tunnel carved underneath a mighty river. Carved by people, by the way, who I'm sure had their differences. And they do it. Concession by concession. You go, then I'll go. You go, then I'll go. You go, then I'll go. Oh my God, is that an NRA sticker on your car? Is that an Obama sticker on your car? Well, that's okay. You go, and then I'll go. And sure, at some point, there will be a selfish jerk who zips up the shoulder and cuts in at the last minute. But that individual is rare, and he is scorned and not hired as an analyst.
Oddly missing from this well-articulated speech was any mention of an incident 1 month ago where 9/11 truth activists at a Jon Stewart book signing in New York City were viciously accosted by writers for The Daily Show, or any indication that the show's executive producer, Rory Albanese, was arrested for assault by the New York Police Department for punching one of the activists in the face.
John, why do you and Glenn Beck criticize the 9/11 truth movement?
Say it again?
Why do you and Glenn Beck criticize the 9/11 truth movement?
I don't know. I guess it's just something we feel.
Came outside here after the event, figured we'd talk to them even more peacefully, just say, no hard feelings, joke around, and, see if we'll take some of our information. And a few of the writers for his show came out and seemed like they were trying to create some kind of a diversion.
How do you get the fuck out of my face with your little fucking camera? How about you touch me so I can get you for assault charge with 4 cameras I got on me right now?
I'd love to.
Guys, relax.
I don't want to relax. I'd rather be arrested.
The man
It's so boring now. It was more fun when we were going to almost fight each other.
I don't want to fight.
Why don't we turn off the cameras? Why don't we turn off the cameras and just fight? Because that's what I'd like to do. Turn off the cameras.
Nobody wants to fight.
This
is about talking about my family. What the fuck is wrong?
This will be great. Jon Stewart fight.
You're telling me what to do with my family? Fuck you, douchebag.
That's pretty emotional. Was it the family Mark that did it to you?
Yeah, it's something you're telling me to do.
Right? Right.
Fuck you. You're a fucking crazy idiot. The rest of you are fucking idiots.
So one of them, who I know he's on the show, really was getting in my face. He shoved me at one point.
Stop,
Relax. Came around the corner and I basically, he was up in my grill, so I just kind of nudged him off me very gently. He takes a roundhouse, basically, and punches me, clocks me in the face. You can see the scars right here. So I just been assaulted by a writer for the Jon Stewart show. I got, some bruises here, and it hurts, and I'm probably going to press charges because I don't want to be assaulted by anyone, let alone a writer.
In pointed contrast to an incident in 2008 where We Are Change member Gary Tallis was falsely accused of assaulting a wheelchair-bound woman at an event attended by the Bushes, and then pursued on the charges in criminal court until found not guilty by a jury of his peers, no charges have been pressed on Albanese, and he will not have to face criminal prosecution for his vicious attack. No word yet on whether any of the tens of thousands of adoring Stewart fans at the rally, or any of the millions around the world watching their televisions in a scientifically crafted, flicker rate-induced alpha brainwave state, will question the hypocrisy of these incidents in the face of Stewart's speech, or whether they will continue to support him and his show staff, no matter what they actually do. Neither Albanese, Stewart, nor any of the show's other staff, including staff writer Kevin Blair, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations who has helped write several Obama speeches, have yet been asked to comment on the incident by any media outlet anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, an activist from We Are Change, Pennsylvania, attended a Bill Clinton stump speech for midterm congressional candidate Paul Konjarsky. When activist Anthony Antonello attempted to educate the crowd on the truth behind the crumbling American economy and the privately controlled central bank that is engineering the current collapse, Clinton supporters from a local union surrounded him and immediately began to verbally and physically assault him for exercising his free speech.
All the new jobs are in that last 30%, and when we get out of the hole and start going into the future.
What jobs?
So how are we going to... I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You let me speak, and then everybody wants to stay in here, you speak and do it.
All right, I'll debate you right now. I will debate you right now. I will. I'll debate. What's that? Don't make any trouble. Make no trouble here. I'm sorry, what was that? Okay. You have a right to be here. I have a right to be here. So do it.
Keep our heads on straight.
First Amendment.
So do it. We're not going to do that. So what do we do? We need more jobs.
Freedom of speech is for everybody, brother.
Yeah, free speech is for everybody.
You're looking for trouble. You're the President of the United States.
While no local news affiliate found this brazen assault in the middle of a public event worthy of coverage, amazingly, one reporter apparently did try to find out what had happened and what Antonello was actually talking about.
I want to know, who are you with?
I'm with
Okay.
It's a TV.
Okay. You seen all that?
County? Yeah, we saw it.
All I was saying was end the Fed. End the Fed. That's not even partisan.
What do you mean, end the Fed?
And the Federal Reserve, okay? What people don't understand is what the Federal Reserve is, it's not even a federal entity, okay? It's
Right.
a private bank that prints our money.
Somebody else told me about
It's
that.
so simple when you understand this, that this is the problem that we have to fix our country, okay? It's a private bank that owns, they print the money out of thin air, give it to us, and they control the interest rates, okay?
Okay.
So once you understand the Federal Reserve System, you understand it's not a Democrat or Republican problem.
It remains speculation at this point whether the same union members and Clinton supporters who called Antonello a faggot and kicked him repeatedly for attempting to speak at a public event later went home and watched Jon Stewart's rally for Sanity on C-SPAN. Finally this week, the politician commonly referred to as President Obama appeared on Jon Stewart's Daily Show earlier this week to face a torrent of softball questions and gentle good-natured humor from the TV funnyman. During the interview, Obama made a verbal gaffe so immediately evident that Stewart had to step in and immediately make a joke out of it.
Larry Summers did a heck of a job trying to figure out how to...
You don't want to use that phrase, dude.
Pun intended.
The words harken back to a phrase that former President Bush infamously used to describe criminally incompetent ex-FEMA head Michael Brown's ability to make the Katrina disaster in New Orleans much worse than it should have been, refusing water and other aid to victims for days after the disaster hit, and confiscating guns with the National Guard from law-abiding citizens in high and dry areas of the city in direct violation of Posse Comitatus.
Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. The FEMA director's working 24
Obama's choice of words were unintentionally apt, however, since just as Michael Brown was directly responsible for much of the death and devastation in the wake of Katrina, White House economic advisor Larry Summers is directly responsible for the current mortgage crisis and the greater derivative crisis that is currently threatening to destroy the global economy in preparation for a new world financial order of a single worldwide currency controlled by the banksters for the pleasure of the ruling elite.
You have 44 million Americans living below the poverty line of 21,400. You have unemployment that will not shake. And we don't even know who owns these homes that people were swindled into buying. And Lawrence Summers is the guy who did it back in the Clinton years. The guy along with Robert Rubin. But the really key piece of legislation, the Commodity Futures Modernization Act. Lawrence Summers was the Secretary of Treasury. He pushed it through Titles 3 and 4, said no existing law or regulatory agency will be able to govern these collateralized debt obligations, these credit default swaps. That opened the floodgates to the scam. The reason I call my book The Great American Stick-Up, this is not one of the normal problems of capitalism. This is not global warming. It's not, exploitation of foreign workers. It's not the failure of our education system. This was a deliberate scam.
In strong contrast to Obama, who believes that Summers and the numerous Wall Street-connected economic advisors in the White House are doing a heck of a job in running the world economy over the precipice, trends forecaster Gerald Celente appeared on the Corbett Report earlier this week to talk about what the unfolding mortgage crisis really means and where the economy is really heading.
It's fraud closure, not foreclosure. And it's only, again, another element, and people should expect this from a banking system that rips off the people at every level. Let's look at the deal here. Let's be realistic. What do they borrow money? For almost nothing rates from the Fed, the big banks, and then charge these ridiculous rates to the people that are borrowing it? You're 2 seconds late on your credit card, and they slap you with a 30% interest rate. Who could get away with that? Only in a criminal society, that's who. So as we see this unfolding, we're going to see it take a very heavy toll on the already sinking real estate market. Look at the numbers, James. New home sales just came out. Oh, they brag that they went up in this year of what Vice President in propaganda Joseph Biden called, quote, the summer of recovery. Oh, yes, they went up, those home sales. They're only 22% below that terrible 2009 level. So this fraud closure is going to have an even more dramatic effect on the sinking real estate market. It's going to seize up a lot of properties that would have been sold, and of course you're going to see many more foreclosures, clogging the system and worsening a bad situation.
Now please go to CorbettReport.com to download episode 158 of the Corbett Report podcast, Requiem for the Suicided, the DC Madam, where we discuss the case of Deborah Jean Palfrey, whose escort service client list threatened to shake the foundations of Washington.